consumers want to know the facts about the products they buy. But America's agriculture landscape is not easy to navigate. Between different companies, scientific advancement, government regulations, advertising campaigns, and an unhealthy amount of myth and misconception, anyone would be hard-pressed to make sense of it. That's where Real Ag comes in. From the producers who make your food to the store where you buy the final product and everything in between. This is Real Ag. From the Kansas Secure Food Supply to Industrial Hemp, we have taken a look at a wide variety of topics on this season of Real Ag. Here are some parts from previous episodes as we take a tour through Season 8 of Real Ag. Production of Real Ag is made possible in part by an underwriting grant from
the Kansas Soybean Commission, the Soybean Checkoff, progress powered by farmers.
The KDA has been working with Kansas milk, beef, and pork producers to develop the secure food supply plans in conjunction with materials available through the Center for Food Security and Public Health's National Secure Food Supply Plans. So, what is the Secure Food Supply Plan?
The Kansas Secure Food Supply Project is an outgrowth of a project really that Iowa State University kind of kicked off a few years ago. And it's really looking at how do we work with industry, work with our partners across really the whole agriculture sector, but in that livestock industry, to help them be prepared in the event of a high consequence foreign animal disease. So right now, if we have a high consequence outbreak, and so the thing that we sort of plan for is foot and mouth disease. That's kind of our worst case scenario in Kansas, because it affects all cloven hoofed animals. So we're talking our cattle industry, whether it's feedlots, cow-calf. It's going to affect our swine industry, it's going to affect our dairy industry, it's going to affect other industries too, sheep and goats, things like that.
If foot and mouth disease was reported, confirmed I should say, anywhere in North America, so Mexico, United States, or Canada, the Kansas Animal Health Commissioner would issue a stop movement order. And in a stop movement order is just what it means. All movement of animals and animal byproducts or products would be stopped. No movement of animals is allowed, and then it'll be against law if you do. And in that particular case, the animals that are en route, they will get stopped at the Kansas border. Okay, and then there's going to be some predetermined offloading sites, maybe at 4-H grounds or there's predetermined sites where those animals will be offloaded. So just when the stop movement order that I'm referring to is transportation of animals in trucks and vehicles and trailers and that type of stuff. So yeah, animals are free to move wherever they are on the farm. But if I want to move animals from my pasture to another pasture, or from a pasture to some pens, that will not be allowed during a stop movement order. It's really to keep the state of Kansas clean. We don't want the contaminated animals, contaminated products coming into our country, into our state, if you will. So in that case, cattle trace or a disease traceability system, a mandatory ID system would be used to be able to quickly identify what other animals this animal has been in contact with. So for instance, if we say animal number 1 shows signs and symptoms of foot and mouth disease, from a cattle trace or from a data standpoint, you can go back and say, where has animal number 1 been? Okay, and you go back, and if we had a disease traceability database, you plug in animal number 1, okay, it will show that animal number 1 has been at farm A and it's been at farm B before that. And we can go back and look at farm A. Okay, look at the animals that was at farm A at the same date and time that this animal was there. What other animals corresponded with that? And let's say now we have animals 2, 3, and 4 that was at that same farm at that same time. Now, where are animals 2, 3, and 4? Now, animals 2, 3, and 4, heck, they could be in Oklahoma, they could be in Texas, they could be in eastern Kansas, they could be in western Kansas. So the trick is, how quickly can you go find animals 2, 3, and 4, other animals that interacted with it, right, that were cohorts with this animal, and go back and quickly notify me as a farmer or somebody else as a farmer and say, hey, just so you know, animals 2, 3, and 4 were exposed to an animal that was known positive or has symptoms of foot and mouth disease. And again, that goes back to the quickness. Speed is absolutely paramount in a disease outbreak like this. So how quickly can we go back and identify other animals that potentially come in contact with this and somewhat isolate them or keep them from the herd so they don't start spreading the virus to other animals within that herd.
Companies such as Terravion have taken on the task of helping farmers get aerial image readings of their crops, land, and pastures. But what exactly does Terravion do, and how does it affect the agriculture industry?
So Terravion is the nation's leader in fixed-wing aerial imagery. And so we fly over fields gathering information via the aircraft, fixed-wing aircraft. We capture natural color, infrared, NDVI, and thermal imagery. The big goal with this is just to give guys, growers, producers, crop consultants a bird's eye view of what's going on in the field and give them at super high resolution. So our resolution is different than what you would get similar to a satellite. It's actually 18 centimeters. So basically the size of a normal sized iPad is the pixel size that you get with our imagery. So guys can pick out any type of irrigation issue if you're in irrigation land, fertility issues, pest issues such as spider mites, grasshoppers, that type of thing. And what guys like the most about it is it takes the blindfolds off of what is actually going on in the field, and they can see it, you know, on a weekly basis with our imagery. It basically gives a grower a peace of mind in terms of, you know, what's going on in the field. He can have a general idea if he needs to fix an issue, if he's low in fertility in an area, if he's, you know, if he's trying to test out a different hybrid or variety, and he can basically go through, make those management decisions, decide whether that was a good decision for him based on the crop year, based on weather factors, and, you know, make that decision for the next year, and being able to maybe add more fertility in areas that were less producing, or push the envelope on areas that were super high yielding. He can push more and get more out of them. Crop mapping is important in terms of getting an idea of how the progression of the crop goes throughout the year, because, you know, at different stage points, the crop itself has different areas of stress that are possible. You think maybe early season you could have drowned out, maybe poor stands via cold weather. You know, as you move further along into the year, you get V6 type corn, and you're basically, that's when the plant really kicks off and takes up a lot of moisture and nutrients. And at that point, you know, you can quantify different things. So if you have poor stand counts, you can see with the imagery and say, hey, maybe I need to go out and replant. You're at the V6 stage, where it's a bunch of nutrient uptake is going on, irrigation, you know, water uptake. You can go at that point and decide, hey man, maybe I need to apply a fertigation or apply a little more fertilizer via broadcast. Later on in the year is really when the disease pressure comes in, the soil-borne diseases come in, and they start affecting the plant leaf area. And so, you know, the more area that's taken up by this disease pressure, it doesn't allow the plant to produce chlorophyll, and essentially with that, they don't produce as much yield. And so if we can quantify that with the crop mapping, with the aerial imagery, we can help maybe confine those zones with different applications of fungicide, insecticides, that type of thing.
Agricultural cooperatives, also known as a farmer's co-op, is a cooperative where farmers pool their resources together to obtain better yields and a good market value for those yields. Farmer-owned cooperatives make an impact on agriculture and have been for a long time. In the United States, almost 2 million farmers are member owners of over 2,000 cooperatives. Farmers are not only in charge of their individual farms, but also have a share in ownership and a say in the operations of the larger cooperative business. So, what is a co-op?
Well, a co-op, I mean, it's a business similar to a corporation. In fact, it is a corporation, but the ownership model is slightly different. So a co-op is owned by what we call member owners, which are typically farmers. They invest in a co-op where they have one vote per member. They pay an initial membership fee in most cases, and based off the patronage they do through the co-op, they build up equity levels within that co-op. Those can be paid out at the end of the year as patronage, depending on how profitable the co-op is, or built up within the cooperative's balance sheet as equity that is eventually retired to that farmer as that equity matures.
Pride Ag Resources is a large local cooperative based out of Dodge City, Kansas, and we probably circle about an hour either direction to 45 minutes. So as a large cooperative producer, our job is we're owned by our producers, and we sell them the inputs, and we help them market their grain. We sell them feed, fertilizer, chemicals, all the inputs that a farmer needs to be successful in farming today.
Servitec was formed in 1975 as a cooperative owned by other farmer-owned co-ops to help farmers address agronomic challenges that they faced in crop production. Since those very humble beginnings, we've added laboratory services, so we do soil and feed and plant tissue testing, as well as a precision ag division that helps growers address opportunities in precision agriculture that will help make them more productive and more profitable in today's challenging agricultural climate.
There are two primary types of agriculture service cooperatives: supply cooperatives and marketing cooperatives. Supply cooperatives supply their members with inputs for agricultural production, including seeds, fertilizer, fuel, machinery, and analysis services. Marketing cooperatives are established by farmers to undertake transportation, packaging, distribution, and marketing of farm products, both crop and livestock. Farmers also widely rely on credit cooperatives as a source of financing for both working capital and investments.
Undoubtedly, the level of competition in the ag retail space and ag suppliers has a direct impact on farmers and ranchers throughout western Kansas and frankly all across the country. The role that Servitec agronomists can play is to help them work through that variety of choices that are available to make the best product choice, whether that's seed, fertilizer, herbicides, planting rate, planting time, make the best decisions that they can, and then evaluate the effectiveness of those decisions at the end of the season to improve their efficiency and profitability in times where there's narrow profit margins and low commodity prices. The role of Servitec really is to bring together information from a variety of sources into a single platform that informs the grower of the conditions in each field that they manage. So we'll pull information from a variety of sources, some that we own, others that we subscribe to, and it'll range from local weather to imagery information, to soil moisture information, yield information, planting history, etc. Combine all of that data into a stack that the grower can look at then and essentially drill down through from the top. If we layer those maps in, and at the top is the yield map for this year, they can use that yield map and drill down through the data layers to make the most informed decision that's possible on how they manage that field, and then make adjustments necessary to improve productivity for future years. Certainly, Servitec keeps as close a pulse as we can on what's driving markets, whether that's expansion of cotton acres through kind of the southern half of the United States, canola. A dozen years ago, the emergence of the canola industry and the opportunities that presented to growers. The role Servitec can play is to be as well informed as possible on those emerging crops so that we can give growers the best advice that they can find to help them achieve that level of profitability that they desire. So our role is going to be to help them reduce risk and to be as well informed as possible to take advantage of emerging market opportunities.
Fires are an integral part of the land, influencing species diversity, ecosystem services such as nutrient cycles and decomposition, and the humans that inhabit and protect these places. Land managers need to understand fire regimes to successfully manage their lands, for neglect could have more devastating consequences. So how do land managers properly integrate a cycle of land burning to help with the natural cycle of life on their land through the use of fire or controlled burning? So what is controlled burning?
controlled burning, and a lot of times we actually prefer to call it prescribed burning, and controlled, yes, hopefully we control the fire in terms of the area that we actually want to burn. And we distinguish that from a wildfire that, those occur naturally. We haven't had any, I guess, here this year, but a couple of years ago we had some extensive wildfires that occur under very extreme environmental conditions. And a controlled burn or a prescribed burn, or we pick the days, the weather conditions under which we want to do those burns. So we have certain, wind speeds, temperature, humidity in particular that we select to do a controlled burn. And usually with that controlled burn, the other major thing is we need to have an objective in mind. Why are we going to burn?
We burn with a written plan that has objectives, and you burn to meet those objectives. We don't burn just for the fun of it. We have a plan and we have something we want to accomplish, whether that's to increase production or to get rid of cedar trees. There are all kinds of different brush. So there's a reason to burn, and we call it a prescribed burn.
You get into other areas of the state and there's other things to consider. There's economics. You can use prescribed fire to improve the rate of gain on young stocker cattle. You can use fire to control grazing distribution or improve grazing distribution. You can use fire to improve wildlife habitat in the case of creating other habitats for upland birds, for example, nesting and rooting cover and that type of thing.
Probably a good symptom in Kansas, though, and in many places in the Great Plains is maybe the amount of woody plants that are actually out there. And eastern red cedar is one that we deal with throughout the state. And as long as those cedars aren't too big, we can get them with fire about any time. But if they get really large, well, then we might have to rely on some other techniques.
In Kansas, there are different types of farming used to harness water for growing crops. Some farmers get enough rainfall in a year and do not need irrigation to get water to the fields. This is called dry farming, where there is no need to divert extra water to the fields. Many farmers aren't so lucky and must use some form of irrigation to send water to their fields. One type of irrigation used in Kansas is center pivot irrigation.
When we refer to center pivot irrigation, maybe a better term would be mechanized irrigation. It's a way that we put water in a pipeline, and then we use that pipeline to deliver water to the field. And a center pivot is a device that has a center point, that has tower structures associated to it, that spans and waters traditionally a quarter section of ground and waters in a circle. So center pivot irrigation are those green circles you see from the airplane. And they range from, just a few acres to 500-acre circles. That's center pivot irrigation. And then there's linear move, which instead of going in a circle, they go lengthways. They go across the field. And so there's a lot of linears in different parts of the country. But it's mechanized irrigation is you're using a mechanized device to apply the water to the surface.
This piece of ground started out as dryland ground, and then irrigation well was drilled, and then it was watered out of a ditch, which wasted a lot of water, and then an aluminum pipe came along, and this was flood irrigated for years and years, and that was more efficient, used less water, less leakage, and now we use sprinklers, and we can precisely apply how much water the growing crop needs. As the crop matures and grows, its water needs increase till it reaches its maximum amount that it needs to use. So by using the sprinkler, we can put on just the amount of water that the crop needs, and we use a lot less water that way.
Much of the water in western Kansas is more than 100 feet below the surface, requiring power machinery to harness this below-surface water supply. Over the last century, these water supplies have been greatly depleted, and the need to conserve water has been a big issue for Kansas and the rest of the United States. So, on a typical farm in Kansas, how much water gets used?
Well, that would depend on the year. This year we had a lot of rain this spring, and so we're not going to use nearly as much water this particular year as we would in a normal year. We have amounts of water we can apply. We can put on like 18 inches a year, up to that much to a particular piece of ground. But this year we're not going to use nearly that amount because of the rains early and then the rains here just recently. The state of Kansas limits all irrigation by how it was set up when the original water rights were set up, and most of the ground around here has 18 inches of water that can be applied per acre. So, like I said, this year we're not going to use nearly that much. And we're lucky where we live here, fortunate that we're on the east edge of the Ogalla Aquifer, and we do have recharge from the rivers here. So sprinkler irrigation is just much more efficient than flood irrigation that we used to use. The next step in efficiency would be subsurface drip irrigation. A field was just had that put in this spring, and so this is our first year of using that, and it's even more efficient and uses less water than a sprinkler does.
Chiropractic, acupuncture, and massage therapies are forms of alternative medicine that are quickly becoming more and more popular methods people are using in the United States as alternatives to drugs and surgery to take care of certain ailments. But how long have they been available for animals?
So it's kind of been around. It's just, I think there's more people that are getting into it and realizing that it's a good quality medicine and an alternative to, you know, just the traditional veterinary medicine of giving meds to treat the symptoms. You know, we actually treat, you know, with the chiropractic, if you've got vertebrae out of alignment, I actually fix the alignment of the vertebrae as opposed to just treating the inflammation and the pain that come along with that. I think people are getting more in tune to more natural modes of therapy, both on the human and the animal side. So I think as it grows on the human popularity, it transfers over to the animal side as well.
Animals are just like us. They have muscles, they have bones. I have my dog worked on to make sure that he's comfortable. I think the body doesn't stay in perfect alignment all the time, you know, just through life, jumping up and down, getting up and down, sleeping wrong. You get things out of whack, and you need somebody to help you keep your body in alignment. It doesn't stay that way by itself.
I think we're just becoming more aware as a society that there's other modalities out there, and that we can use those modalities to improve our animals' health in a more natural way as opposed to throwing meds at them. When I got into practice, you know, I'd have dogs that were sore or hurt, and all I could do was, you know, give them meds and rest them. And so I always enjoyed what the chiropractor did for me, so I went to the chiropractic school to learn how to adjust animals and give them another way to have relief and make them feel better. They do a lot more than what a lot of people think they do. You can use them just to keep the animal moving better and working better. It keeps the nervous system functioning better. And if you can keep the nervous system functioning, then you make everything else function better. As far as the acupuncture, you know, everybody always asks me, you know, why does it work or how does it work, or you know, the Chinese have actually been doing acupuncture for close to 3,000 years. And you know, here in the U.S., most of us are more of a Western mindset, and so we're used to going to a doctor and getting pills or medicine or whatever. If you live in China or India or, you know, a lot of other places, you go to an acupuncturist before you go to an actual doctor. So you go get treated with needles and potentially herbs before you go to somebody who might give you medicine or surgery.
A crop now available to the Kansas farmer is industrial hemp. Industrial hemp is a strain of the cannabis sativa plant species that is grown specifically for the industrial uses of its derived products. It is one of the fastest growing plants and has a great diversity of products it can be used for.
It's one of the most fascinating plants on the face of the planet. And it's a cousin even to hops. Like you put in beer, it's a close cousin to hops. So there's so much going on with that plant. And I think that American farmers have a tremendous opportunity right now to move ahead with a new crop.
Because I personally think it's a miracle crop. And as a miracle crop, we're going to have a whole new enterprise throughout the United States of America. And our farmers are going to benefit from it. And that's my biggest excitement, helping farmers continue to grow.
It gives them an opportunity to lengthen their rotations, which means that you're messing up your bugs and your diseases and your weeds because they're all different. And it also has so much potential for a market for eventually for livestock feed, for fiber, for human food, and for, in some very highly controlled situations, remarkable medicinal oils.
You can make over 50,000 products with it. We make hemp cookie dough. We make hemp pizza crust. We have hemp cookie dough now in grocery stores. The benefits of it: high protein, high fiber, omega-3, omega-6, omega-9. It's almost like you have a healthy cookie. I'm not going to call it a healthy cookie. I'm going to call it a cookie made of hemp. So the benefits are they're unlimited. Chairs, clothing, horse stall bedding, kitty litter, hempcrete buildings that can be made that literally can't be burnt down because they're made of hemp.
You've got the medicinal oils. Okay? You have pressed from the seeds rather than from the flowers, you get things like salad oil for salad dressings. That's two. You can take the pressed cake that's left over after the oil, and you can grind that up and you can make hemp flour out of it, which is incredibly nutritious. It's got a remarkable profile for micronutrients and things like that, equivalent of pistachios and oysters and clams. The point is that it's very, very nutritious, and those things actually relate to a healthy immune system. You can make fiber, you can make clothing out of that fiber, you can make rope out of that fiber, you can make paper out of that fiber.
Aerial imagery, prescribed burning, and irrigation were all topics covered this season. We hope you enjoyed this season of Real Ag, and as always, you can check out this and other episodes of Real Ag by going to shpbs.org. From the producers of Smoky Hills PBS, this has been Real Ag. Production of Real Ag is made possible in part by an underwriting grant from
the Kansas Soybean Commission, the Soybean Checkoff, progress powered by farmers.